I'm going to have to preface with some context before I open this can of worms. I, 23-year-old female, live with two male roommates, Sam, 24-year-old male, and Robert, 25-year-old male. Sam and I have been best friends since we were kids, and if you would have asked me a couple months ago, I'd tell you I'd trust this man with my life. After getting screwed over by my old roommate Gabby, and that's a whole different story in itself, I was left in a pinch to find a new roommate quickly. Sam told me he was back in town after college and looking to move more locally, so I asked him to move in with me to cut down on rent. This was around summer 2022, when rent prices were starting to skyrocket in my area. I was a little hesitant at first because early on in our friendship, he confessed he had a huge crush on me, and I turned him down. This caused a falling out that lasted a couple years. After reconnecting and talking to him about it, we were able to move past it, and he assured me those feelings were long gone. We lived together for a year, and within that year, his feelings for me came back. It caused a lot of issues in the living situation, and we almost didn't renew our lease with one another. During that year, we met Robert. Robert was dating my ex-roommate, Gabby. To paint you a picture, Gabby was as disgusting on the inside as she was on the outside, and 100% of the reason why we didn't get our rent deposit back. She was like Season 2 Jerry from Rick and Morty, roping people in with a self-victimizing complex and then screwing them over, only to cry wolf to the next person she leeches off of. She still owes me over $3,000 in rent expenses since she'd rather blow her paychecks on shopping at the mall for useless decor. The thing with Gabby is that she was a hopeless romantic, with an emphasis on hopeless. She would screenshot her conversations with Robert, send them to me, and ask what to respond with. I would sit there and help her orchestrate a perfect romantic response every time. They were absolutely smitten with each other, but he confided in me that she was completely different in person versus over text, which is where this all starts going downhill. Oops! Well, I eventually cut Gabby off finally, and Robert went with her. However, Sam was one of those guys that had a lot of girlfriends and not a lot of guy friends. And he really missed the connection he had with Robert, as they could talk about stuff he can't talk to girls about. After a month or two, I reached out to Robert, and suddenly, it was Sam, Robert, and I all hanging out without Gabby. We all hung out through the year. Robert dumped Gabby after realizing she was a lying mooch that wasn't going anywhere with her life. And eventually, to kind of save Sam and my own roommate situation, we invited Robert to live with us at the next apartment. Backstory context over. Sam, Robert, and I have been living together for about 9 months at this point. I lost both my jobs prior to move-in and was living off of savings for 8 months. I could have lived off of it for about a year if I needed to. But Robert also lost his job about 3 months into our lease. That meant for about 5 months, I was covering mine and Robert's rent. Why do I do this to myself? The money was starting to run out. So I asked Robert if I could turn his room into a tattoo studio, since he regularly crashed on the couch or slept in the hammock on the balcony. And he could move his stuff into my room. He was more than willing, as he's covered in tattoos himself, and I was giving him free tattoos in exchange for the room space. The night he moved his stuff into my room, I was out on a date with my new boyfriend, so it was just Sam and Robert at the apartment. According to Sam, the night Robert moved his stuff into my room 3 months ago, he got a notification on his phone that a camera got added to the Wi-Fi. He immediately blocked it from the Wi-Fi and said nothing about it for 3 months. That brings us to last week. Robert and I finally got jobs, so Robert was at work and planned to crash at his parents' place after, and I had an off day where it was just Sam and I at the house. We had 3 TVs set up so we could watch anime while both playing Elden Ring in the same room. I noticed there was some weird energy between Sam and Robert, but it was emanating off of Sam more than anything. I decided to question Sam, and after some pressure, he finally told me about the camera. My heart freaking sank, pardon my French. We immediately started tearing through my room trying to find it. After some searching, we found it inside one of those styrofoam mannequin heads, hidden under a mask, right above my bed, and it was plugged in. I felt super sick to my stomach, but I wanted all the answers before I started jumping to conclusions. I immediately called Robert, but his phone was going to voicemail over and over, either indicating I was blocked or his phone was dead. So I reached out to his sister through Instagram, who went and woke him up. She called me on Instagram and handed him the phone. As calmly as possible, I started questioning him about the camera, while my roommate was not being very calm. Robert admitted to setting up the camera immediately, but said he was using it and the cord as a counterbalance to hold the mannequin head up. So it wasn't top-heavy and falling off of the bookshelf, it was on. That made somewhat sense, as the other two mannequin heads also had some counterbalance structure holding them up. He then told me he intentionally blocked it with black paper, and although it was plugged in, there was no sound and it couldn't see through the paper. I felt relief for only a moment, until my roommate put the mask and the head together and realized that the black paper was unfortunately on the wrong side. Robert says it was a mistake, but Sam brought up the fact that the black paper conveniently covers up the white of the mannequin head, so I wouldn't be able to notice a difference in the eyes of the mask, as the camera lens was also black in the other eye. I still don't believe Robert would do anything like this, as he has never expressed any romantic interest towards me and never violated my privacy or trust before. Plus, he has been regularly helping out my parents lately, so I don't understand how a man could look my family in the eye and do something like this. I really need some outsider's perspective, as I'm too close to this situation. I'm also very upset at Sam. He did block the camera from Wi-Fi, but neglected to unplug it or tell me for 3 months in fear of messing up the living situation. And his explanation sounded more in his self-interest than anything. People of Reddit, help me out here. What should I make of this situation? I haven't really been home since the news, and I don't feel comfortable going back until my mind is clear. Edit. The camera was one of those home security cameras that has a live feed and no SIM card. It was set up in his old room. That was before we turned it into the tattoo studio, and it was sitting in that mannequin head in his room, just under a different mask. To give you an idea, he had it under a green skull Rasta mask in the old room, sitting inside his bookshelf. But then, it was moved to hide under the Red Devil version of the Scream mask and moved to the top of the bookshelf. I told him before he moved his stuff in to make sure that camera was taken out and disabled, and he assured Sam and me that it was. Prior to all of this mess, I was told that it doesn't have the ability to record and store videos, unless Robert was watching it and hit record through the app. He assured me the app hasn't been downloaded in months, and is swearing up and down that the camera was not intended for nefarious use. I'm going to take this to RE legal advice. I just don't know what to think or do because I don't want to destroy someone's life if it ends up being an honest mistake. Let's be real here. The man smokes a lot of that good green stuff, and it happened the same day he moved a ton of furniture around by himself and set up my tattoo studio for me. He could have just been a lazy dumb butt with it. Plus, his family is in the process of losing their house, and 2 cars broke down. If I arrested or sued him, his life would be over. Plus, he owes me a total of $1,702.86 in bills and rent expenses. After losing over $3,000 to his ex-girlfriend, I'm not so keen on losing the $1,700. On top of that, if my parents found out, legal issues would be the least of his problems. I don't know if this is important information, but I'm adding it in here. His dad is a cop, so he should know better, right? Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. All the intimacy videos on the internet, and they do this to see their roommates' breasts and buttocks. Unbelievable. Idiots. Comment 2. Please attempt to gather any evidence that you have and take it to the police. Now, for the update. Thanks for sticking around for this update. So, after the whole camera mess, things got even messier. I was already on edge, and then Sam drops another bomb on me. He tells me he saw Robert sneaking into my room late at night, a few times when he thought I was asleep. I couldn't believe it. I confronted Robert, and he tried to brush it off, saying he was just checking to make sure the window was locked or some other lame excuse. But I wasn't buying it. I felt betrayed, and my trust was shattered. I needed to clear my head, so I went to stay with my new boyfriend for a few days. While I was gone, Sam and Robert had it out. Turns out, Sam had been harboring resentment towards Robert for a while. He felt like Robert was taking advantage of me and our living situation. They got into a huge fight, and by the time I got back, Robert had packed his things and left. He didn't even say goodbye or try to settle things with me. But here's where it gets hectic. The day after Robert left, I got a call from my bank. Someone had tried to cash a check from my checkbook, a checkbook I kept in my room, which I barely used. The signature was a terrible attempt at forging mine, and the bank caught it right away. I had a sinking feeling I knew who it was. I checked my room, and sure enough, my checkbook was missing a few checks. I was furious. I felt like a fool for ever trusting Robert. I went to the police and filed a report. I didn't want to, but I couldn't let him get away with it. The police took it seriously, especially since Robert's dad was one of their own. They found Robert at his parents' place, and he confessed to everything. The camera, sneaking into my room, and the checks. Sam was apologetic for not telling me sooner about the things he noticed. He said he didn't want to cause drama if he wasn't sure, but he realized he should have trusted his gut and warned me. I was still mad at him for keeping things from me, but I understood where he was coming from. In the end, Robert had to face the consequences of his actions. His dad was disappointed, and the look on his face when he found out what his son had done, I almost felt bad for him. Almost. But I couldn't forget the violation of my privacy and the attempt to steal from me. With Robert gone, Sam and I had to figure out the rent situation. We managed to find a temporary solution, and I started working extra hours to make up for the lost money. It was tough, but I was determined not to let Robert's actions ruin my life. Thanks for reading this mess of a situation. My fiancée cheats at her bachelorette party and lies about being pregnant with my child. So I cancel the wedding and expose her affair to everyone she knows. Me and my fiancé have been together for nearly 5 years. Like every couple, we've had ups and downs, but we have always moved on and love each other dearly. To cut to the chase, we're finally getting married, and she went off on her bachelorette party with her friends and sisters. She's been having a great time and sending me pictures, texting, and even called a couple of times. I've been laying back and letting her enjoy her time, but still responding when she messages me. Last night she was out on a bar run with everyone, and she looked amazing in her outfit. She looked genuinely 10-10, and I understood people would hit on her and buy her drinks, which was fine, but nothing past that. Towards the end of the night, she was in line for a bar or club and started talking to a girl in line who was very pretty. She told my fiancé that she still hadn't had her first kiss. The idea of getting her first kiss, I guess, sent her over the edge, and they kissed. After the initial peck, they opened their mouths and tongue kissed, all while my fiancé is holding this girl's face with one hand around her jaw. The girl gets embarrassed and backs up, but my fiancé is standing there, lost in the moment, almost wondering why she stopped. She calls me immediately afterward and starts to apologize profusely, telling me what she did and that it was a mistake, but downplaying the kiss to just a peck on the lips. She was very drunk, and her sister sends me a video of it and realized there was more than just a peck. I initially am upset, but not that upset since it's not a guy. She continues to apologize for like an hour and asks for my forgiveness. I don't feel 100% on what I thought, but told her yes because all her sisters were there, and I didn't want to ruin her last day of her party. After thinking about it more, I realized that it doesn't really matter that it was a girl. She still cheated on me. I feel so hurt and lost. She's my best friend and honestly, someone I would consider the most loyal and trustworthy person there is. I love her more than anyone. I feel broken thinking that wasn't true. I don't want to break up or call off the wedding, but I don't know what to do. I feel completely depressed and don't know what I'm supposed to say to her, what I'm supposed to do to move forward, etc. It just feels like I have to get over it and move on. She also really does seem remorseful, so I don't really want to rub this in her face. But I can't stop thinking about it, even when I try to go play video games to distract myself. I end up thinking about that and not really playing. Any advice would be nice. I pick her up tomorrow from the airport. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. She cheated, then lied about it. Her friends and sister recorded it instead of stopping it, so you'll never be able to trust them alone with her again. It literally took nothing for her to betray you with some random woman. Imagine if that other person was in her daily life and actually put effort to try to get her to cheat. I'm sure she'd fold and make excuses then too. I'd continue on with baby steps. The red flags are everywhere. Comment 2. I feel like these fictional stories would seem less fake if the creative writer in question took more care to make the baseline story more believable, and then follow up with a few replies at least minimal effort. Now for the update, thanks for sticking around. A lot has happened since I last posted. So I picked her up from the airport, right? She was all apologies, tears streaming down her face, the whole 9 yards. I wanted to believe her, I really did. But something in my gut said there was more to the story. I let it slide though, because that's what I do. I get walked over and just take it. Then a week later, I get a call from her phone, but it's not her. It's some guy, and he's going on about how he's been seeing my fiancé for months. Says he found my number in her phone and thought I should know. I'm thinking, this has got to be some kind of sick joke, right? But he sends me pictures, and there they are, cozy as can be. My world just stopped. I confronted her, and she broke down, admitting to everything. Said she was confused and scared about getting married. I didn't know what to do. I felt like such a fool, standing there, listening to her excuses. I should have been angry, should have kicked her out, but I didn't. I just stood there, numb. The wedding was off, obviously. Our families were in shock. Her sisters wouldn't stop calling, trying to patch things up. But how could I? Trust is like a mirror, you know? Once it's broken, you can put it back together. But the cracks are always there. I thought that was the end of it, but life had another curveball for me. Turns out, one of her sisters, the one who sent me the video, had known about the affair all along. She came clean, said she felt guilty for not telling me sooner. That betrayal stung almost as much as the cheating. It was like everyone knew but me. I was the last to know, the punchline of some cruel joke. I had to get away, clear my head. I took some time off work, went to stay with a buddy out of town, and that's when the next bomb dropped. My fiancée was pregnant. She wasn't sure who the father was, and suddenly, I was potentially tied to her for life. I came back to town, we got a paternity test done. Waiting for those results was the longest week of my life. It came back negative. I wasn't the father, I should have felt relieved, but all I felt was this hollow emptiness. She moved out after that. Last I heard, she was trying to figure things out with the other guy. As for me, I'm just trying to put one foot in front of the other. I'm back at work, back playing video games, but it all feels so pointless. I've started seeing a therapist, talking about how I let people walk all over me, how I never stand up for myself. It's hard facing those truths, but I'm learning slowly. I'm learning that it's okay to be angry, to demand better for myself. I guess that's all for now. Thanks for reading. My ex got another woman pregnant, and my best friend betrayed me by falling for him. So I cut them both out of my life and showed them. I'm better off without their drama. I need you kind strangers to tell me to get a grip and move on. It's a mess. Going to change names and ages is because I know he uses this. I, 29-year-old female, met Mark, 25-year-old male, nearly 2 years ago through mutual friends. We very quickly hit it off, and after a couple of months of dating, we became a couple, eventually moved in and got a dog. All was well. We got along very well and appeared to want the same things. Mark and I have had different life experiences, and while I've lived on my own before, he hadn't. So there was definitely an adjustment period. I was incredibly stressed at work, exhausted every day. Mark didn't know how to deal with it and buried his head. We now recognize the problems we had and what we would do differently now. Unfortunately, we broke up about 9 months after we moved in. There was no cheating or lying, etc. It just wasn't working for us at the time. And we lost our way with communication. He moved out and we continued to share the dog. It was up and down, and then it was amicable. Over the last 6 months, we've not been able to stay away from each other. Eventually, about 4 weeks ago, Mark came to me and told me he still had feelings for me. We had a big discussion, took a few days apart, and decided that we wanted to make this work. We had a couple of things we needed to sort out first, but we determined we couldn't stay apart for good reason. However, a week after this decision, One of the girls he slept with while we were apart told him she, Rosie, a 19-year-old female, was pregnant, about 6 weeks. She's keeping it. Mark and I have now decided we can't be together. A baby changes everything and has to be his priority. And, by default, Rosie. Rosie does like Mark, but Mark has admitted he doesn't feel like that for Rosie, although enough to sleep with her and hurt her. I don't want Rosie hurt. As much as it's so rubbish she's carrying the baby of the man I'm in love with, she deserves to feel safe, secure, and at peace in this process. I have told him that pregnancy can be very emotive for a couple, and that could develop a relationship in the future. I made the decision for myself to walk away, because I can't watch him raise someone else's child. I have a lot of respect for the decision he made, and he has my decision. However, we still can't seem to stay away from each other. And today, we slept together. Even though we decided a week ago we wouldn't and couldn't be together, I'm heartbroken. The future I had planned has now been taken away, and I had no say in it at all. How can I watch the man I love have another girl's baby? I want to walk away. I need to. I can't be a part of this situation. I need you kind strangers to tell me I'm crazy to still be entertaining him. Anyone who has been in this situation, please share with me. Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. I know you're hurting, but in this situation, block will be your best friend. It's going to be harder seeing him go to doctor's appointments, seeing them share those special moments, and bond over a child. It will be even harder because in your head, you're going to be thinking, this should have been my life. For your mental health, it's probably best to block him and then do things to keep yourself busy. Comment 2. Yep, walk away and block. It's best to just move on and occupy yourself with a hobby or the gym to get your mind at ease. Therapy if it will help you let go. I could never stay with a man that I love who got another woman pregnant, because it would be like rubbing salt in my wounds. Don't let those wounds keep opening and seek out a new happiness. Occupying yourself is the key. Now, for the update, thanks for sticking around for this update. So, after that last mess, things went from bad to worse. Mark, the guy I can't seem to shake, decided to do a complete 180. He went from being all about Rosie and the baby to suddenly questioning the whole thing. He started saying stuff like how he wasn't sure the baby was his and wanted a paternity test. Rosie, of course, was devastated. She thought they were going to be some kind of family, and here he was, doubting her. I should have been out of the picture, but no, I got dragged back in when Mark came to me for advice. I told him he needed to step up and deal with the consequences of his actions, but he just wouldn't listen. He was convinced Rosie had cheated on him during their brief fling. The whole situation was a mess, and I was right in the middle of it. Then, as if things couldn't get any more complicated, Rosie's parents got involved. They were furious with Mark for even suggesting Rosie had been unfaithful, and threatened to take legal action if he didn't accept responsibility. It was like watching a car crash in slow motion. In the midst of all this, I was trying to keep my distance, but Mark kept finding reasons to talk to me, to see me, and I, like an idiot, kept letting him in. It was like I was addicted to the drama or something. But deep down, I knew this wasn't good for me. I was just setting myself up for more heartache. Then, the paternity test results came back. Mark was the father, no doubt about it. He was shocked, to say the least. He had been so sure, and now he had to face the reality that he was going to be a dad. Rosie, on the other hand, felt vindicated but also heartbroken that Mark had doubted her. She decided she didn't want anything to do with him beyond co-parenting. Mark was a mess. He came to me apologizing, saying he didn't know what he was thinking, that he was scared. I felt sorry for him, but I was also angry. He had caused so much pain and trouble for Rosie, for me, for himself. It was like he was his own worst enemy. And just when I thought things were settling down, another bombshell dropped. My best friend, who had been my rock through all of this, confessed that she had feelings for Mark. She had been there for me, listening to all my problems, and all the while, she was falling for him. I felt betrayed. It was like I couldn't trust anyone. I confronted her and we had a huge fight. She said she couldn't help how she felt, that she had tried to keep her distance, but Mark had been there for her when she was going through a tough time. I couldn't believe it. My best friend and my ex, who was about to have a baby with another woman. It was like some twisted soap opera. In the end, I had to make a choice. I could either stay in this toxic cycle, or I could finally walk away. It took every ounce of strength I had. But I chose to walk away. I cut ties with Mark, told my friend she could have him, and I started to rebuild my life without them. It's been hard, not gonna lie, but I'm slowly getting there. I've realized that I deserve better than to be someone's second choice, to be caught up in their drama. I'm focusing on myself now, on healing and moving forward. Thanks for reading this far. It's been a hectic ride, but I'm finally taking control of my life again. If you like this video, you'll probably like these too. Also, while you're here, please consider subscribing. It's your support that keeps this channel alive and allows me to make better and longer videos. Have a great day.